Good afternoon, class. Good afternoon. So before we start, we're going to look at our state standard, which is use phrases and clauses accurately. So we're going to say these together, okay? I can use independent and dependent clauses in sentences. And then I can distinguish the differences between independent and dependent clauses. Okay, so that's what we're going to be able to do by the end of this lesson. So I'm going to turn the light off and we're going to watch this video real quick. Maybe.
What do you know about being hungry? Dear Tim and Moby, could you please explain what clauses are with some examples? Thank you, Ramya. Sure thing. Every sentence is made up of one or more clauses. That's any description of someone or something performing an action. Every clause contains a subject and a predicate. The subject is whatever's performing the action. Like in the sentence, Tim eats a tasty lunch, Tim is the one doing the eating. So he's the subject of the sentence. The predicate is the verb and any supporting words that describe the action. So, in the same sentence, eats is the verb and eats a tasty lunch is the predicate. Right, Tim eats a tasty lunch is both a clause and a complete sentence. To be complete, a sentence has to contain at least one independent clause. That's any clause that can stand on its own as a complete thought. Moby is a robot and he never has to eat are both independent clauses because they can stand alone as sentences. They're also called simple sentences since they're made up of a single clause. Simple sentences are useful for describing all sorts of situations, but can you imagine a story that used only short, simple sentences? Yeah, it'd make sense, but just try reading it out loud. Tim was eating lunch. Moby didn't want any. Moby is a robot. He never has to eat. He sat with Tim. He watched him eat lunch. Doesn't flow very well, does it? Using just one type of clause over and over is bound to put your readers or listeners to sleep. Combinations of different clauses make sentences a lot more compelling. Because Moby is a robot is a dependent or subordinate clause because it can't stand alone as a sentence. It has a subject, Moby, and a predicate, is a robot, but it's not a sentence. Just listen to it out loud. Because Moby is a robot, right? It sounds like I'm about to say more because it's not a complete thought. Dependent clauses are sometimes called fragments since they're not full sentences. To make it into one, we need to join it with an independent clause. A complex sentence joins one or more dependent clauses to an independent clause. Well, I'm not saying they're better than simple sentences, but a mix of simple and complex sentences generally makes for more interesting writing or speech. If you know your clauses, you can use them as building blocks for all kinds of different sentences. Well, for example, you can link up independent clauses with a semicolon. Or you can use coordinating conjunctions to join the two clauses. Those are linking words like and, but, so, or yet. Subordinate clauses can't form a complete sentence on their own, no matter how many you string together. That's because they can only do the work of a noun, adjective, or adverb. A noun clause is a subordinate clause that acts like a noun. In the sentence, Moby wanted to try what Tim was eating, the clause, what Tim was eating, is doing the work of a noun. See, you could replace the clause with a noun like pizza or a pronoun like it. Adjective clauses do the work of adjectives. Just like an adjective, the clause that the robot drooled on modifies a noun, in this case, food. Clauses that tell you when, where, how, or why another clause happens are called adverb clauses. after Tim was done eating tells you when Moby washed the dishes. So that clause is acting like an adverb. Yes, lunchtime. What the what? Moby filled my lunchbox with Energon cubes, so there was no room for my sandwich.
Alright guys, so that had a lot of clauses, but we're just going to focus on independent and dependent clauses for right now. These are some notes that are also in your Chromebook, but I want y'all to write a little bit. So go ahead and take out something to write with and something to write on. Alright, so a clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. So I want y'all to go ahead and write that and underline clause, subject, and verb. An example of a clause is some students work in the food pantry because they care about helping hungry people. So our subjects and verbs are highlighted here. So students and they are our subjects, but work and care are our verbs. In the video, they also called them predicates. Predicates are the same thing as verbs. You don't need to write the example, but I'm going to give y'all just a second to finish writing that first definition. So there are two kinds of clauses, which are dependent and independent clauses. An independent clause expresses a complete thought and can stand alone as a sentence. So go ahead and write that, and make sure you underline can stand alone as a sentence, like it's highlighted here. So an example of an independent clause is some students work in the food pantry. If I walked up to you and I said, some students work in the food pantry, you would understand that some students work in the food pantry. It would make sense if I told you that, right?
Yes.
So let's just remember that for a second. And then let's look at our dependent clause. A dependent clause does not express a complete thought and cannot stand alone as a sentence. Make sure you write not in capitalized letters and cannot in caps as well. Dependent clauses are also known as subordinate clauses, which you had to identify in your bell work last week, I believe. An example of a dependent clause is because they care about helping hungry people. If I walked up to you and I said, because they care about helping hungry people, would you know what I was talking about? No, you'd wonder where I was going with that sentence, right? But if you notice, it still has a subject and it still has a verb. So just because it has a subject and a verb doesn't mean that it can be a complete thought or an independent clause. I'll give y'all just a minute to finish writing that. Does anyone need any more time? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and stand up. We're going to learn something. Let's stand up. All right, so y'all are going to have to do what I do and repeat after me, okay? This is an independent clause. It can stand alone. It doesn't need any help. It's a complete thought. This is a dependent clause. It can't do anything by itself. It always needs a buddy. It always needs a what?
Buddy.
All right, so let's do it again. This is an independent clause. This is a dependent clause. It always needs a buddy. What's this one? How is it independent? It can do this all by itself. It can be a complete thought. It doesn't need any help, right? What's this one?
Dependent clause.
And what does it need?
A buddy.
A buddy. It needs help. It depends on this one to help it, right? Yes? Right. All right, y'all can go ahead and sit down. So I'm going to pass this out. Go ahead and put your names on it, but you don't have to start it just yet. We have one more thing to go over first. Alright. So, next, we're going to talk about subordinating conjunctions. So, remember that a dependent clause, which means a buddy, is also known as a subordinate clause. So, subordinating conjunctions kind of are like dependent conjunctions in a way, okay? So, I want y'all to write this list. I know it's a lot of words, but it's going to be really helpful. So y'all go ahead and write this list. I'm going to read it to you. Our subordinating conjunctions are after, although, as if, as long, as much, as soon, as though, because, before, even if, even though, how, if, in as much as, in order that, lest, which I think that's supposed to be least, now that, provided, since, so that, than, that, though, till, unless, until, when, whenever, where, wherever, and while. It's a lot, but you will be able to look back at your notes and use it, so you don't have to memorize all of them. Anyone need any more time? Just give me a thumbs up when you're good. Alright guys, go ahead and take out that packet that I gave you. And we're going to start practicing it together. So also take out like a highlighter and a pen and a pencil. We're going to need 2 colors to write with, okay? And we also need a highlighter. Alright, while we wait on this to wake up and focus, our instructions are to underline the independent clauses once and the dependent clauses twice. We are also going to highlight our subordinate conjunctions, which is that big list of words you just wrote. So we're going to start it together. I want you to follow along, okay? So, if we look at the sentence number 1, because he ran, he was able to catch the bus. If I think back to that list, I know that the word because is on that list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the word because we know that that is our subordinating conjunction. So we're going to underline our dependent clauses twice. I'm going to do them in red. And we're going to underline our independent clauses once, which that's going to be blue for me. However you want to do it, I just want to let y'all know the colors. But so we know, because he ran, is our subordinating conjunction, which indicates the start of our dependent clause. So because he ran is our dependent clause. Because that doesn't make sense. If I just said because he ran to you, you would have no idea what I was talking about, right? So he was able to catch the bus. If I said he was able to catch the bus, you would understand what I was talking about. You'd know he was able to catch the bus. So we underline he was able to catch the bus once, and because he ran twice. Until the sun sets, I will stay with you. Thinking back to our subordinating conjunctions, we know until is on there. So we're going to highlight that. That's our subordinating conjunction. And then if I look at this sentence and I break it, and I say, until the sun sets. Well, until the sun sets what? We don't know. So we know that that can't stand alone. It can't be a complete thought, making it our dependent clause. But if I said, I will stay with you, we know I will stay with you. We know that's a complete thought. It makes sense if I say that to you. So that's our independent clause. So I will say goodbye as the light dims. Can someone tell me what our subordinating conjunction is? Yes, ma'am. As, yes. As is our subordinating conjunction. So if we look at that and we know that's our subordinating conjunction, we can break our sentence. And I will say goodbye. That makes sense. If I walked up to you and I said, I'll say goodbye, right? You would know I'm saying goodbye and I'm going, right?
Yes.
So we know that's independent because it makes sense if I just walk up to you and say it. It's a complete thought. But if I said, as the light dims what? We don't know. That wouldn't make sense if I just walked up to you and said that. That's our dependent clause. If the dress is on sale, she will buy it. What is our subordinating conjunction? Yes, ma'am. If. Yes. If is our subordinating conjunction. So what would that make our independent clause? Yes, sir. She will buy it is our independent clause. Yes. How did you decide that that was the independent clause?
It doesn't really make sense if you say she will buy it.
She will buy it is our independent clause. If I walked up to you and I said, she'll buy it, you'd know she's going to buy it, right? So our independent clause is if the dress is on sale. If I walked up to you and I said, we were in a store, if the dress is on sale, and then I walked away, you'd be like, what is this lady talking about? We wouldn't know. So someone tell me what our subordinating conjunction is for number 5. Jordan. Wherever. Yes, sir. So Jordan, what is our dependent clause?
He might go.
Wherever he might go. When you look at your dependent clause, your subordinating conjunction is the start of your dependent clause, so you make sure you include that. And I will follow him is our dependent clause, right?
Yes.
I mean independent clause, sorry. So number 6, so as long as you know, I will be waiting for you. For this one, our subordinating conjunction is so. And our dependent clause is so long as you know. Because so long as you know what? You don't know yet. I haven't told you. So the rest of the sentence is I will be waiting for you. Because so long as you know, like we said, it's going to need a buddy. It needs a buddy to make sense, right?
Yes.
Do y'all feel like y'all could do the rest on your own, or do you want to do a few more together? Thumbs up for on your own? Thumbs down for together? All right, we're going to go to number 10, and then I'm going to let y'all do a few on your own, and we'll go over them, okay? Whenever you visit, be sure to bring food. So what is our subordinating conjunction? Eric? Whenever. Yes, sir. That is correct. So our dependent clause is whenever you visit, because that can't be a complete thought. It can't stand on its own. And our independent clause is be sure to bring food. someone help me find our subordinate conjunction for don't try it on unless you have the right size. Yes, ma'am. Unless. Yes. Our subordinate conjunction is unless. So, someone tell me what our dependent clause is. Yes, ma'am.
Unless you have the right size.
Unless you have the right size. Because that wouldn't make sense if it was just by itself, right? So, don't try it on. You would know. I'm telling you not to try it on. That would make sense. Actually, guys, I'm going to do number 11 with y'all. It's a little tricky. So, someone tell me, when we get snow, we will go sledding. What's our subordinate conjunction? Yes, ma'am. It's just the word when is our subordinating conjunction, but when we get snow is our dependent, it's the whole clause. Because the conjunction is usually just a really small bit of the word, so it's usually not the whole phrase. But this one has a comma to kind of help us. So, we will go sledding is our what? Our independent clause. Because he was elected, it shows he is determined. Yes, ma'am. Because is our subordinate conjunction. So, what does that make our dependent clause?
Because he was elected.
Because he was elected. Because if I walked up to you and I said, because he was elected, well, what about him being elected? We don't know. So, it shows he is determined is our independent sentence, or independent clause. This one's a little complicated though. So someone tell me what the subordinate conjunction is. Yes, sir.
Who?
Our subordinate conjunction is who, but wait, don't underline anything yet. Because this one's a little bit strange. So, the teacher who lives next door to Rob is Miss Johnson. So we know who is our subordinate conjunction, but if we do what we've been doing, which is like the rest of the sentence, then we'd be left with the teacher. That doesn't make sense on its own, right? So for this one, our dependent clause is actually just in the middle of the sentence. The dependent clause in this one is who lives next door to Rob. Because if I took that out and I said the teacher is Miss Johnson, that makes a lot more sense than me just saying the teacher, right? So the teacher is Miss Johnson is our dependent clause, and it's actually just broken up. It's our independent clause, and it's just broken up by our dependent clause. So that is a possibility. Now I'm gonna let y'all do the rest on your own, and we're gonna go over it at the end. So maybe about 5-6 minutes. And just raise your hand if you need any help, okay? ahead and underline that one twice. Or in pencil, whichever you like. Her dog will run away with her independence clause. What starts on our class? So, the letter is also a class. Because on our subordinate conjunctions. Yes. So, if because is our subordinate conjunction, what's our dependent clause in this sentence? If we read the sentence. Because the same as what the items so we can see this. No. Because if I told you, because it's long and have power, that's not a complete sentence, or complete thought, is it? It's not, so, go ahead. Well, I want this one to say, see, you can sit on Thursday. That's all we thought, right? So we're not knowing that once the whole thing is finished. We do that. Okay. I'm not doing it. Yes. Even though it's not like a strong sentence, it's still a complete thought. That's our independent.
Independent?
Yes,
This is the independent?
that's independent.
It's independent?
Right. So your dependent clause is always gonna start with that conjunction. So even though is your conjunction. So that's gonna be your dependent clause. So it was good, even though it's a really small and weak sentence, it's still a complete thought. Alright. What's the list? Alright, so let's look at this sentence. Are any of these words on here? Let's look at like the T's. This isn't in there, but that is. So highlight the blue, that's a subordinate and conjunction, okay? Let's highlight that. Give me just a second. Okay. So, we know that that highlighted word, a subordinate conjunction tells us where our dependent clause is. So, that you missed last week doesn't make sense by itself, right? So that's gonna be our dependent clause. One second. Yes, sir. We have to break it up and we say, well, this one makes sense if I take it out of the sentence and I put it to someone, they would know what I was talking about. But if I took this part out, it doesn't make sense, it needs a little help. Then you would know that the one that needs help is your dependent clause, but the one that makes sense is your independent. One second, sir. Well, I'll say it's good, even though, so, I don't know, even though. long, but you don't know, what about it? Okay, the movie was long, and that one doesn't make sense by itself, right? So we know that might be our independent clause because it doesn't make sense by itself. But if I said, it was good, though that's a weak sentence, you know, but it was good, right? So, you know how the movie was too long, it's a weakness clause, no, it was good. Started by weakness clause, and it was good as our This one actually not on your list, so I'm not surprised, but that's okay, it's just a tricky one. Third one, and then I'll go for this one, okay? Alright guys, let's look at some of these. Let's finish this together. So, someone tell me what our subordinating conjunction is for number 12. Yes, ma'am.
If.
If. If is our subordinating conjunction. So, Mallory, we already know that if is our subordinating conjunction. What's our dependent clause?
If the gate is left open.
If the gate is left open. And what is our independent?
Our dog will run.
Yes, ma'am. Alright, someone tell me what our subordinating conjunction is for number 13. Yes, sir. For number 13, you said what?
Oh, because.
The word because. Because is our subordinating conjunction. So, Liam, can you tell me what our dependent clause is?
The storm knocked out the power.
The whole phrase. Because the storm knocked out the power. And then, so what does that make our independent clause?
School will be canceled on Thursday.
School will be canceled on Thursday. Alright, someone help me figure out number 14. Tyree. That. Yes, sir. So, what is our whole dependent clause? Tyree?
You missed last week.
It's, so the subordinating conjunction is going to be the start of your dependent clause. So it's included in it. So that you missed last week is going to be our whole dependent clause. So what's our independent?
This is the homework assignment.
Yes. So someone help me with number 15. Okay. Juliana. Help me. What is our, I'm sorry?
Even though.
Even though. Perfect. So what is our dependent clause?
Even though the movie was too long.
Even though the movie was too long. And our independent clause,
It was good.
it was good. So let's look at number 16. Are we having any questions? We're getting it? Okay. You want to help me with number 16, Eric? All right. Go ahead. What's our subordinating conjunction?
Well,
While. So let's, it's hard to see on there, but. So what's our dependent clause, Eric?
the whales rose to the surface.
While the whales rose to the surface. And what's our independent clause?
The moon shone on the ocean.
The moon shone on the ocean.